8:46, so we'll just go ahead and get started. This is AI in education. It's demystifying what AI is and trying to find its place in our school system. So if you haven't already, do follow us. I'm with School Ministry, LCMS School Ministry. So you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, TikTok. I think there's a LinkedIn probably somewhere in there. We never post on it, but we have it. So they're all at LCMS Schools. We also run the Luth Ed page, the Facebook group there. So if you haven't joined that, great resource to be in as well. And then we do have one for early childhood teachers and then one just for administrators. So check those out. If you scan this QR code, this will take you to the Canva presentation. It's the most recent version of the presentation, constantly evolving. So you always get the most up-to-date information on it, or there's a PDF copy located in that Google Drive folder for you. And then if you are trying to get internet access, you have to do the Hyatt conference, and then it's CNH 2024 for it. All right. So a little bit about me. I'm Will Van. I am the technical title is Manager of Online Support Services and Social Media Manager for LCMS School Ministry. There's only two of us in the office, Dr. Allen Freeman, who's the Director of Schools, and myself. So we run everything from our Lutheran School Consulting Service, our School Start Program, Genesis, NLSA. We run that entire beast as well. That comes from our office. And then all of our social media stuff, Teacher Toolkit Thursday, once a month. We have our Finance Fridays. We're always looking for ways to help resource. It's a lot of stuff we do there, but it's really fun, because I get to come out and present and share with you guys. Before that, I was at Christ Community Lutheran School. I was their director of technology and then the elective teacher, which I always call the fun teacher, right? Those are like the classes where you do nothing. So I did everything from like esports, which you're like, oh, okay, sure. We did take first in the nation for our middle school group, and it was like a dodgeball game that they were using. So it was pretty cool. But I also led an artificial intelligence class where I taught kids how to build AI tools so they could play different old NES games with. That was an interesting elective there. We also did 3D printing, rocketry, you name it. And then before that, my first call was at Emmanuel Lutheran School in St. Charles, Missouri. That was an interesting one. It was a new position they started, which was the technology coach position. So I got married in 2013, right after graduating from Seward, and my wife had a job out in Metro East Lutheran High School. I was like, I should probably find something to do. I probably need to work, right? So I found this. This was brought to my attention, brand new position. So I get there day one, and it's my favorite thing that we do in Lutheran education. You know, that and other duties as assigned. So I show up day one, and they go, by the way, you're our 6th through 8th grade computer science teacher. I'm like, yes. And then a month later, they were like, you're also going to be our STEM facilitator and coordinator. We're starting a whole new STEM program. I was like, I can do that. So I worked all the way from early childhood. So for CCLS was our infants to 8th grade. And then at Emmanuel St. Charles, it was our 2-year-olds all the way through 8th grade, working with those teachers, finding ways we can help implement technology at that time. My favorite part about that was the smart boards. Do you remember like the big old bulky smart boards that like never worked all the time? Oh, I learned a lot from that. Those were good times. Now everything's all slick and nice. So a little interesting, busy lifestyle. I have 3 children now. Sunny is 4 years old, and she absolutely loves her new baby sister, Lena, who's 2 months old. Then my middle child, Augie, he is 2 years old, and it was an interesting year. He had some health issues at the start of the year, and then we were like, you know what? Let's have a kid too in September, so let's navigate that whole stuff. But it's been fun. I love them. They're out in Indiana right there at with their grandpa, and they're having a good time. So it's fun. They love being on the farm. So that's a little bit about me. I guess I also went to Concordia, Wisconsin for a master's in instructional design and technology, as well as Seward, where my original degree was secondary education, history, and psychology. So probably thinking, what's going on there? Well, like all good Lutheran teachers, it's you kind of fill in the spot where you are and you grow there, and that's where God wanted me. So let's talk a little bit about disruptive technology, because AI is disruptive, right? It is this crazy tool that's just been dropped on us. And a disruptive technology is a new piece of technology that's going to change what we're going to be doing in the future. And I think it's important we have to put this in context because there are some weird things that we don't think is disruptive technology now. Anybody have an idea of one of them?
When you are online and they're like, need help, talk to me.
Yeah, the whole chatbots that now exist there. And sometimes you're not even talking to a person until you get frustrated and you're like, help, 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 right? I like to point this one out, the toilet. I always loved talking about this when I was going through my degree for history for student teaching. Toilet was a disruptive technology in the late 1800s. Originally, what would you do? You'd throw everything out the window, then someone would come and sweep it, or you'd have rains, all that water washes away, destroys everything, causes some really nasty bugs out there. Yeah, the toilet revolutionized everything. It also eliminated jobs, when you think about that. But it created new jobs at the same time. Washing machine. Washing machine was touted and marketed as a way that for women, you're going to, oh my gosh, we're changing everything. You don't have to spend hours washing laundry. That's the marketing for it. And it did, it changed it. It also eliminated jobs with that. Eliminated the whole, you could actually go to different locations, pay people to wash your laundry. Well, now it's created more jobs, maintenance, building, repair, everything that goes into making it. Refrigerator is an interesting one. So, if you think about the refrigerator, it's this nice modern amenity, right? Well, we have a dear friend in Indiana, and she's turning like 92 this year. She tells stories about how on her farm she grew up, they were still getting ice from the ice block man who would come around all the way up into the 70s because electricity wasn't there. But huge disruptive technology. It not only preserved food, it helped change how we interact with people. It also eliminated that ice block position. The car, cars, that'll never go faster than a horse, team of horses. Don't see a lot of horse and buggies unless you're in Pennsylvania. Calculator. Growing up, you'll never have a calculator in your pocket, right? When I was at CCLS, like all good Lutheran schools do, you take your support staff and you give them a desk inside somebody else's classroom. So my classroom for being director of technology was she was our special ed teacher, and then her degree was also in math, so she did all the math classes as well. And it was so funny because the first 2 years I was there, she kept telling the kids, can't use a calculator, can't use it. By the time I left there, she was going, all right guys, break out your calculator, it's test time, just show your work. Amazing how that changed so fast. Cell phones. What about the iPad? 10 to 15 years ago, that was a big thing. You either know iPads in education, or it's just full bore, every kid has an iPad. There was no in between there. My favorite was reading and going back and reading some of those. If you read those articles, oh my gosh, iPads are going to replace teachers. What are we going to do? Kids don't need teachers anymore. We don't need classrooms. You have an iPad. That worked out well, right? Chromebooks, very similar. A little bit easier, but still similar idea. We don't need to have our textbooks anymore. We don't need to have physical media. Kids can just take a Chromebook home. There's no disastrous consequences that can occur there, right? So that's some disruptive technology. So what is AI? Well, artificial intelligence, we need to have a definition. And like all good presentations, you have to have your, as defined by Merriam-Webster. And I say no to that. I say we're using Britannica. I love Britannica. Okay, break out the 30 different books there. They say artificial intelligence is the ability of a digital computer or computer-controlled robot to perform tasks commonly associated with intelligent beings. I like that definition, but there's another one that I really like from TechTarget. I want to focus in on the first part there. Artificial intelligence is the simulation of human intelligence processes by machines. Artificial intelligence is nothing more than a simulation, right? It's not free thinking at this moment. It's not coming up with its own unique ideas. It is just a numerically generated system that is guessing its best. And we're training it to guess better, but it can still mess up. But I like that. It's a simulation. Noam Chomsky, he had this piece in the New York Times in January. Depends on how you view him. He did have this great quote in there. Indeed, such programs are stuck in a pre-human or non-human phase of cognitive evolution. True intelligence is demonstrated in the ability to think and express improbable but insightful things. AI right now is not coming up with new information. It's not making those connections between point A and point B and all the little bits of information that go in between. It's good at guessing what it might be, but it is lacking the cognitive human intelligence piece and, more importantly, the empathy piece that goes with it. 155. What do you think that is a reference to? That is what is considered the average IQ of ChatGPT right now. 155. That's true. I don't have 155 IQ. I'll be the first to admit it. Albert Einstein, depending on the sources you look at, was anywhere from 140 to 200. Most people agree that it was about 160. He never took an IQ test. We have artificial intelligence that is now almost as smart as Albert Einstein, which we consider him one of the smartest men in the world, right? And we have that power to freely access right now. Our students have that power to freely access that. So what are some words commonly used with AI? These are ones that you see repeated a lot: reinforcement learning, machine learning. All machine learning means is that the machine is teaching itself. You've given it the parameters to teach itself. Supervised and unsupervised learning. This one's interesting. So there are still jobs that you can apply for that are really well paying, like 30 bucks an hour, where you go through and you train an AI. You're telling it this was a good answer, this was a bad answer. Where you're going through and you're trying to tag data in different ways. It's really weird, but it's remote work and 30 bucks an hour for that. That's crazy. Chatbots, that's the big one. When you communicate back and forth via text, that's a chatbot. Whether it's Gemini, OpenAI, ChatGPT, Meta AI now. That's a big one. Jim, you wouldn't think Jim is that, but Jim is the specific reference to what OpenAI uses to train all of its models. It's what helps teach it to learn, and it's freely available. If you have basic coding skills or know basic Linux, you can download OpenAI's Jim and train it to play video games. You can train it to act as like a large language model. So how does AI work? The whole process, start to finish. Well, you take raw data. In this case, let's say it's a book. That's it. You just have your book. Now you've ripped all the pages out of the book, and you're going to go into pre-processing. Pre-processing is going through and tagging everything: noun, verb, adjective, grammar, style, synonyms, antonyms, for every single word in it. That's what you're doing. You're pre-processing it. Then you take it and you extract all of that and you drop it into essentially an Excel spreadsheet. You're just making a giant database that it accesses. You have your small bit of code. You tell it what it needs to do, references the database, and then you start training it. You start saying, is it accomplishing the task? Do I need to go in and revise the code? Tell it to do this, change parameters. Once you've started training it and it's getting a good understanding of what you want it to do, you go into this test and validation phase. And this is where we start coming in as users. As a user, if you look at ChatGPT or any other AI bot, there's always a thumbs up and a thumbs down. So if you get a good answer, give it a thumbs up. You're reinforcing that this is content that was accurate, true, and you like it. It's going to take that and then utilize those parts and give it to other people, distribute it to other people who ask similar questions. If it's bad, it'll tell it to remove it. And then if you get enough people, if you look at like X's community notes, enough people say this is good content, it recommends it more. If it's bad content, it starts to eliminate it from its system. So you have this, you get into the optimized phase. If you ever looked at ChatGPT when it first came out, it was like 2019 when they first demoed it, and it was really slow. One sentence took about 2 minutes. It constructed it really well. Then you'd ask it to make another sentence, and it would take longer, and it'd go a little crazy, and then another sentence even longer, and it'd go off the rails until it was complete mush. It was a nothing sentence. Well, we've optimized that. You can now write essentially an entire book in 30 seconds with that. That's how fast this is growing. You have this good idea, this AI, you've optimized it, it's in this user phase, you deploy it to a larger group of people. Maybe you do an open release for everyone to access it. Then you let it make its own decisions, predictions, you get that feedback, and it goes back into that test and validate, and then you get stuck in this user development cycle, testing it, validating it, optimizing it, making it better, deploying it to more people, and letting it continue to do its thing. This is what I used to do. I like to point this out with students when I did my AI elective. We trained, Super Mario was the first one. Think about Super Mario and what you have to do. As a human, you know, I have to jump here. I need to get this. I need to stomp here. I need to, say you're trying to train it to get the most coins, so you need to get coins. AI, when you start it in its initial phase, knows nothing. It knows it can move forward, backward, jump, duck. Then it has to test every possible combination out there. And if you're using a slow computer, that takes a long, long time. But if you're using a supercomputer, you can run millions of simulations in a matter of minutes to have it test and train. And it's only getting faster from here. So different types of AI. We have our large language models. This is what you're familiar with, ChatGPT, Llama, which is Meta AI, Gemini, Claude is out there. Generative image models, that gets into some trouble there. But you know, you have DALL-E, Midjourney, Photoshop and Canva use a base version of OpenAI's version. They change it a little bit. But there's more out there. And then conversational AI. You have had this for years. Siri, Alexa, Google Assistant. I remember doing a Raspberry Pi class. I taught the kids how to make their own Google Home assistants because it was all freely available and out there. But you'd train it to learn different language patterns, language models, what it needs to say, trigger words, and then allow it to grow from there. So what is the impact in education for this? All right, we've looked at what a disruptive technology is. AI is that. We've learned a little bit about it. Well, the first thing we know that it's going to do, because we all experience this, cheating. Oh, I felt so bad for my wife. She was a sophomore English teacher at the time. And I remember in November, she assigned an essay. She had all the kids turn it back in record time. And it was all 100% AI. Every student used it. And I hate to say that, but humans, it's a sinful human world. We're lazy. We'll take the path of least resistance to get us to our end goal, which for them was probably sitting on their phone. Well, now I have a tool that can write my entire paper for me. I maybe might edit it, look at it, change it around a little bit, but for the most part, no. It's huge. You can use it for math. Give it the exact problem, and it'll take you step by step for it. For science, history. Question is how much of it is accurate then. Peer tutoring, though. This is an interesting one, because I see this as a benefit. What is it? It's ask 3 friends, then come ask me, especially when you're having one of those rough days, and the kids maybe didn't understand the topic, or it's a little bit above them. Well, now they have this opportunity to go to a source and start asking questions that they might not know. Maybe you wouldn't know the answer to. They can interact with it, go into deep dives, try and learn from it. Now there's a problem. We're starting to interfere with that zone of proximal development. We learn from each other. And if we have this, well, uh-oh. Now we're telling it to learn from a machine and we're not vetting the source properly. There's an issue there. You do have that decreased social connection. I read a horribly sad thread on X. Sounded cool at the time, but when you start thinking about it, it was really bad. So this educator, he was grading a bunch of papers, and his son wanted to learn all about engines. How does an engine work? So what does he do? Here's my phone, ask the AI. And he's excited because now his son is engaging, learning about how engines work, going into this deep dive. But now think of that. He just lost an opportunity, right? He lost the chance to learn something with his son, make a bond, build together. And he was saying, oh, this is great, because kids ask why. I don't have the answer all the time. This does. If we do that as teachers, yikes, right? Our kids do learn from us when we interact with them. And it's not just the answer they're learning about, it's how we handle the answer, it's how we talk to them, how we show compassion to them. As Lutheran educators, we have the best thing possible, how we can share the gospel with them in whatever answer we give as well. AI is not going to be able to do that. Sure, it can quote. It's not going to do well, though. And the one I can't stand is the abandonment of academic norms. This one kills me. I see so many, especially principals out there, who say, well, our kids are going to cheat, therefore we should expect them to cheat and change what we're going to do for them. One thing about school is it helps teach children a framework for society, right? If all of a sudden we say, well, we're expecting you to use ChatGPT to write this essay, so there you go, we're not going to punish you, even though that is a form of plagiarism. You didn't actually write it, and according to copyright law, you don't actually own that property. The company owns that property, but we'll change it to make you feel better. What else are we going to change for them? How are we going to bend backwards to make them feel comfortable for using that? That's a bad thing. We should have expectations, and we keep people to those expectations. You all have expectations as workers in the world. You have expectation to your family members. And if we're telling kids now that, it's fine, you can change it, we'll change it for you, that's going to have some consequences we're not realizing later on. There are huge ethical implications as well that we can get into, anywhere from the environment to just how it's trained, who's using it, where it's accessed from. But these are the big ones for education. Our data bias, how it's trained, and what information it's being given. It doesn't matter on what your political belief is. Google did a really bad thing earlier this year. Their Gemini model, when they released it to the public, you could ask it to generate an image of George Washington instead of just providing you an image of George Washington. What did it do? It provided an image of George Washington in every ethnicity except what he was, right? That's taking history, what we know, and changing it because we have a political bias there. And when interviewed about it, the lead developer for Gemini said, yeah, that's exactly what we did. They put an agenda in there. They put a bias into it. And we have to be careful of that. We have to realize that and expect that there's going to be something in there. Misinformation is huge. It's called a hallucination when AI makes something up. Now get this, right when ChatGPT was released, there was a lawyer in New York. That lawyer used ChatGPT to write his entire brief and then submit it to the court. Well, what did it do? ChatGPT made up entire case law. It made up cases, what happened in it, and then cited it. What? That's crazy. The guy almost got disbarred. He was fined $30,000 because of that. That's huge. That's big misinformation, and he was relying on it to be true. The idea of eliminating jobs, I actually disagree with this, right? Yes, there's always, in disruptive technology, jobs get moved around. Some of them might not exist, but in the future, new jobs are created for it. One of the things that AI can't do is the empathy component. It lacks empathy. That's where we come in. Even if we're using it, we still have to provide the interpretation. Copyright infringement. How generative image models work is they basically Google search, scour everything, steal the image from there, or they go to these different artwork websites with artists, steal it, and then they don't cite it. They don't get permission, they don't pay anything for it. That's how they're training it. There's some issues, and we'll see what happens with it. And again, that eliminating of the social connection. One of the things I saw when it first came out, people were really excited, was a school used marketing material with fake students in it. That's crazy. First, that tells me you don't value your actual school. You're not willing to show it. You don't value your students. You don't value your families. And when you use a fake student in your marketing material, well, what does that say? There's some underlying issues that go with that. And then, of course, emails. This is a hill I will die on. I've heard so many podcasts where people say, let's use AI to take that angry parent email. We're going to feed it to AI. It's going to give me a breakdown of what it is, and it's going to give a response back. Well, there's some huge issues. First off, that student's parent who's angry. We've all gotten the angry emails. I remember getting a lot of them because I'd mess up. The worst possible thing to do would be to be dismissive and put an AI response back on it, because you did not internalize that issue. As Christians, we grow together in community. When you have something like this that's going to put a barrier for that community, it's going to break it, there's going to be some long-term consequences to it. Something to keep in mind. Major controversies on this. Talked about ChatGPT just being released onto all of education, and they said, here you go, enjoy it. Well, that's a big one. But one we don't talk about often enough is AI pornography. Right? It came to light that there were some issues going on earlier this year with it. There's news stories, you can look that up. But what we're not talking about is how children can access this. The average age a male boy accesses pornography is 8 years old. That's a yikes moment, right? So that they're doing an intention to find. Image generation, well, now that's not just an intention. That is specifically telling the AI what they want to see, and it's going to really damage them that way. Right? Pornography really destroys our social connections. COVID learning, how many of you quickly scrambled to put Go Guardian on or securely on your Chromebooks? Yeah. So when I was at CCLS for the 2 years before COVID, it was really interesting. We only had maybe 3 cases where a student was accessing porn on their Chromebooks, and you deal with it accordingly. When we put Go Guardian on, I kid you not, that first week we went from 3 cases in 2 years to 70 individual cases, so 70 individual students accessing pornography at home on school devices. Thankfully, Go Guardian catches it, but what we're finding is that places like Go Guardian and Securely aren't really good at catching the generative image models yet. They're getting better, but now students are finding ways around that. That's huge. And I'll say, as the director of tech, my principal said, oh, well, this is your mess. You implemented this. You found out about it. You're going to deal with it. I did. But oh man, if we have something like this that kids can access on their phones, and that's a whole other story about kids having phones, we're going to have some deep issues there. Then in academics, this one I find really weird, but we're finding through different research analysis techniques that there are a lot of scholarly works that are being pushed through ChatGPT and Gemini, and then they're being published. So in one case, it was in a medical journal. They found in the last 20 years, I can't remember the word, was only used about 1,000 times. ChatGPT really likes this word. So for the previous 20 years before ChatGPT, not really used. After ChatGPT 2021 and on, it's been found over 30,000 times in medical journals. Now think about that too. Now you're thinking, well, did they do the research? Did they actually analyze the research? Did they know how to write this? Do they understand what they're looking for? And if they're a doctor, do I really want to go to that doctor because I can't really trust that they might just be going in the back room looking at WebMD or ChatGPT and putting my symptoms in? Right? It creates that level of mistrust too. So we have this. We've seen the ethical implications. We've learned what AI is. Now we can make some policies. We can make classroom or school-specific policies. Teach AI has this great model for building out a policy for a school. And it does the thing that Lutheran schools are, we're really bad at, right? We make a policy and then it's in our handbook, and then we never touch it again for the next 20 years. Yeah, I've seen some of those policies where they still reference flip phones in the classroom. That doesn't apply. Teach AI made this. So stage one is our guidance and policy. We make it like this basic framework of what we want to see. Then we provide some guidance. Maybe it's a little toolkit. Here's some approved tools. Here's some time for you to explore on your own as a teacher. And then we push that into our organizational learning. We deploy this to our teachers, to our students. We see what's working, what's not working. We're getting feedback from it all the time. That informs our policy. It goes back and informs our policy, so we change it how we want. Or we can move it into the improvement and transformation. We really like what's happening with our policy. We like how we're learning as an organization. How can we make it better? And then you keep going in the cycle, back and forth. So how does that work? I always like to start with a question. I call it guiding question. What is our vision of a desirable and educational system that leverages automation to advance learning outcomes? So we're going to start with that framework. This is what I want. This is how I want to see my teachers utilize it. Well, here's my sample policy. Use of generative AI tools is permitted in this course for the following activities. Then you list those activities. Use of AI tools is not permitted in the course for the following activities: impersonating yourself, completing group work, writing drafts for assignments, anything that receives a grade. It's very clearly outlined there. Here's how you can use it. Here's how you don't use it. How do we promote new technologies that remain educator first? So what's going to be best for my teachers in the classroom? Well, here's one. During some classes, teachers may leverage generative AI tools. You're not specifically stating what AI tools it's going to be, right? So you're giving them the option to see what works best for their classroom. And then you give them some ideas of how it might be used. You're not limiting them to it can only be used for these activities, but here's how it might be used. The only thing we limit is that it's not allowed to be used to generate anything for a grade. Well, that's pretty simple. That's a good framework. And then educators are more empowered to use it within their classroom. And then there's this one. How do we create a policy that fully prevents the use of AI and promotes academic integrity? If you have no idea what you're doing with AI, this is the policy that I think you should go with. It's very simply stated as students refrain from using it. It's plagiarism. We have a plagiarism policy. They will be subject to our plagiarism policy if they're caught submitting it for work. Very simple. This is the one I recommend if you're not sure what to do, you need a policy in place, drop this in, but then you go to that Teach AI version and you start working through. You deploy it to a few teachers and say, how can we make this work in our classroom? Gives you the base level of safety. So if a student submits their work, well, plagiarism policy. Pretty simple. So our adoption and practice of this. So how can we use this? How can we bring it into our classrooms? Well, anytime we have a new piece of technology, this is how it goes. This is the basic version. It starts with concern, curiosity, excitement. New piece of tech? Oh man, this is going to be destroying what's happening in my classroom. Well, now it's a little interesting. There's maybe an app I can use on here that's useful. I found a cool website. Oh, let's use this in class. We're going to try this new lesson with it. You get really excited, and then guess what happens? You find a new way how it can be abused, and you jump back into that concern phase, and then you keep going through until you, this reiteration of it, until you find what works best. This is called the technology adoption model. This is like the formal version of it. There's, it's TAM, there's also TAM 2, TAM 3, and they get into really specific things. But it starts as this. We'll use Chromebooks as the example. So as a principal, you come in and you go, oh, okay, all the teachers are using Chromebooks in the classroom now. We just got a donation. That's your external variable, Chromebooks. They have to be used in the classroom. You're going to look at it with two ways on there. Perceived ease of use. How easy is this Chromebook to use? Well, kids open it, they sign in, they access Google Drive, Google Classroom. How useful is it? Well, they have a tool that they can now write all of their assignments. They can access content that I need them to. They can engage in different websites that I approve. It's pretty useful. That's just created like a behavioral intention for use. I have a positive attitude for it. So that positive attitude is going to say, yeah, I'm going to be excited for using this. And then you actually use it, and then you go back and you reiterate. Now let's talk about smart boards with this. This was my favorite, the big old bulky smart boards that are nothing more than a giant touchpad. The external variable, smartboard, perceived ease of use. It was not that easy to use, I'll be honest, right? Because you had the pins, they would go missing. All of a sudden, you're trying to erase something, but the red marker's going on, and you don't know what's going on. So there's a little bit of a learning curve. How useful is it? Yeah, I mean, it's a glorified projector screen, right? I have a negative attitude now. I don't want to use it. I'm going to find every way to not use it, and then that's what happens. And then you feed on that. Well, it's just a glorified projector. Why do I need to interact with the screen? I can hit the next button. And then you keep spiraling down this hole, so you make sure you don't ever use this technology. This is what we can view AI in the same way. Department of Ed, it kills me to say this, did something really good. They made a 70-page white paper on AI in education, and the thing that came out from it was this. It's called the ACE model, always center educators. Whatever the technology is, whatever the policy is, your educators should be on the forethought of it, right? You need to be looking at what your educators are going to do because they are the ones that know their classroom. I can say from a high level as a principal, oh, I know what's going on in the classrooms, I can make this policy, but really, in all reality, I don't know what's going on in those classrooms day to day. I have a general understanding of it. Who knows it best? The teacher. So whatever we do, whatever technology we have, because there's going to be new technologies that come out, always center educators on it. It's a great model, too, as a classroom teacher if you're trying to find a way to justify using a new piece of tech. So we've gone through all that, and now I want to equip you all. This is the toolkit. This is the few pieces of the thousands of websites out there that I actually think are useful and would be a great starting point, whether you use it or you're going to be giving this to others. First is you need to choose which language bot you want to invest in. Right? You have ChatGPT. In the center is Claude. Claude does a better natural language. It sounds more natural when you read it. And then there's Grok. I use Grok from X for coding all the time. It makes fantastic bits of code. I made a whole interactive display with a camera based off of Grok coding. And I didn't even know most of the coding for the scripts I needed for Python on it. So you choose one. Then you have Notebook LM. This is from Google. So I have to preface this. Google loves to do the thing where they make something really cool and then they kill it off in about 2 years. So careful how much time you invest in it. But it's a personal small language model. So you have Notebook LM, and you can upload up to 50 pieces of evidence in it, whether it's PDFs, YouTube videos, audio files, presentations. It hooks directly into your Google Drive, and then it builds basically a chatbot around all of that information. The best way I can see using this is coming from my history side, is if I have a specific time frame in history that I'm working with. Say the Industrial Revolution. Well, all of my content that I have, I can upload into here and then allow students to use it to ask questions on the content I'll be teaching them for it. It's a really cool use of it, and it's very user-friendly. If you have a paid subscription of ChatGPT, you can build your own GPTs. I do it all the time. We have one for NLSA, and it aligns, and then we have all of the standards, so ISTE standards, Common Core, Next Gen Science, all of that. That's all built in there, and I can ask questions. I can ask, well, how can we maybe change this to make it sound a little more Lutheran? Then I train it off of the ESV, off of Luther's Small Catechism, Book of Concord, and I can say, how can we make it really Lutheran? So you have the opportunity to actually make your own language models right now, which is something we didn't have about a year ago, or even 6 months ago. This is a content checker. GPT-0, there's actually one I just found that's a little better called Zero GPT. I like it. Content checkers are good, but they are not the be-all, end-all, right? It's a conversation starter. Hey, I ran your paper through GPT-0, and it came back as 60% AI. Can we talk about this? This is my hesitation for it because I've watched my wife write because I wanted to check it. She's an excellent writer, and she'll score as being complete AI written if she actually applies a lot of the like our style guide book for Synod. So it's interesting that way. So you have to be careful when using it, but it's always a conversation starter. And kids, let's be honest, most of the time, they're like, yep, you got me. They don't try and put up that much of a fight. Fireflies.ai, I love this one. This is the one rare time I actually recommend a paid service. This is a fantastic transcription service. So it attaches to my calendar, all of my Zoom meetings that I have to be in. It goes to them for me. It then takes notes for me. They'll give me a full transcript. So in this case, say I wanted to like click somewhere in here. Maybe I want to click at where it says, just wondering if I still send it to you. I can click that specific area. It'll take me to that specific timestamp in the audio, and I can listen to it. It gives me a sentiment analysis, which I think is cool because maybe I'm walking away from a conversation or a meeting. I'm thinking, wow, that was kind of a negative meeting. I wonder why. Right? You can go back and see. It's also a great way to help train yourself while speaking. You can see if you're using more negative words too versus positive words or neutral words. Yeah.
So you're recording yourself and everybody else in the room as you're in the meeting?
Yes.
And are you then telling them you're being recorded?
Yes. So it actually pops up and says Fireflies AI is recording this meeting. And then it's you are responsible if someone says, I do not want that. You have to kick them out. You have to kick Fireflies out. So that's something to keep in mind. In Missouri, however, because it's a single party consent state, it can just run all the time for me, especially if I'm hosting the meeting. But for the most part, it's good.
You just bring your phone with you?
Yeah, actually, I don't even need to bring my phone with me. It automatically jumps into the meetings for me. So I missed a meeting with Association of Lutheran Secondary Schools. They were doing a presentation I wanted to go to. I missed it. This jumped in. They let it in because they know it was mine, and it gave me the full transcription. I then provided it back for them to use on their own. But
What is the cost of it?
I'd have to double check what the cost is. I pay for the annual subscription, and that was like $150 for it. So I try and do annual subscriptions just because they're way cheaper with AI services. That's where they get you now. It's the monthly stuff. I saw another hand up. No? Okay. Grantable. This is a grant writing one. So this AI platform is being trained off of grant writers, people who review grant applications, and what it does is you submit your PDF to it, and it's going to come back and give you suggestions. You should bold this. You should turn this into bullet points, right? And it does some best practice stuff for it. And this is one of our old requests for a grant from a while ago. Update it so it looks newer for presentations, right? But it's really cool because it gives really good feedback. This one, what's going on here? This one right here. This is one every teacher should implement in their classroom right away. Note GPT, it's a video summarizer. So you take that YouTube link, you drop it into Note GPT. Not only do you have the video, you have a transcript of it, key insights, and then also key takeaways. So at minute 6:03 in this video, maybe I want to highlight that. Serving on a validation team is a valuable opportunity to contribute to Lutheran schools. It's my plug for NLSA too. So serve on a validation team. What I would say with this too is that double check the content, but I'll give you a story. When I was a first year teacher, I found a fantastic video I wanted to give to my students, which was only the first 10 minutes, and I didn't watch beyond that 10 minutes for the rest of the 30-minute period on it. And I got a lot of angry emails from parents because there was some colorful language that was then used, and I didn't realize it. Something like this is a great time saver as a teacher, so you're not sitting there playing it in the background, trying to listen, do other work. You can go through, scroll, do your Control F, the find feature, if you're wanting to make sure there's no negative words in it. But then also on top of that, for your students, well, here's a video I want you to watch. Here are the key takeaways. So you're priming them to be paying attention for it. Yeah?
Do you have this recorded of you?
Yes.
This lesson?
Yes, I do.
In this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, that's what I'm doing right now. So saving an audio version for it. Don't worry, it's not recording the room either. It's just me. Magic School, this is a freemium service. This one's pretty cool. This would be the other one I would recommend on potentially paying for, like for a school license. If you haven't heard of Magic School, you get the like premium service free for 2 weeks, and in it you have access to their own chat bot, which is called Reina. It's completely trained on educational best practices, educational topics, so you can chat with it there. But it does some other cool things. One of them I like to highlight is this rubric generator. Oh, first year teacher. I spent so many times, especially because I bought into project-based learning. Everything I'm going to do is project-based learning. And then I didn't realize that I'm making rubrics for like my entire life there, trying to decide, is this a 2 or a 3? Is that a 4, a 5? Maybe, right? So you tell it, you prompt it, you give it the standards that you're trying to meet too, what the assignment is. It'll build out the rubric, you review it, make some changes as needed, and then you have that, and you've just saved that first year teacher from like 2 hours of work, they're down to like maybe 10 minutes of work. One of the things in our studies we find, because we're trying to do more teacher retention surveys on our end, is that we're finding a lot of teachers are getting burned out. Surprise, surprise. That was anecdotal data for us as Lutherans, by the way. This is the first time we're actually seeing that. And we're seeing that the average range teachers want to stay is between, it's like 3 and up to 7 years. Well, why is that? That first year, those teachers are getting burned out. That's hard for them. And our early childhood educators, they're getting really burned out on the hours they work. One of the other cool things they do too, they have a text leveler on this. So you feed it a piece of text and you say, I need this to be rewritten at a 6th grade level or a kindergarten level. Or you have a piece of text that was made, you really liked it, you found it in like a 4th grade textbook, and you're like, I need this written at a 12th grade level. They'll rewrite it for you, and then you just double check the content. The rule when using AI is called 80-20. You let it do 80% of the work, you do 20% of the finishing touches. Make sure it's correct. The other one I should point out too, YouTube video questions. You feed it a video, you tell it what standards you're meeting, what the objective of your lesson is. It'll generate some questions for you on that as well. That's a useful feature. Definitely check it out. That's what I have to say. Check this one out. It's worth it. Here's a cool one, Gamma. So Gamma is a presentation creator. And if you start pairing different websites like this, so maybe you take Magic School AI and you want it to develop a lesson plan. You give it the state standard, the objective that you're doing for the classroom. It'll build out the lesson plan. You take that lesson plan, feed it then into Gamma, and say it needs to create a presentation. In that presentation, you can tell it to use either Creative Commons licensed images or generative AI images. I recommend Creative Commons. If you give this to students, always tell them use Creative Commons licensed images. We want the real thing. It builds out like a 5 to 10 slide PowerPoint for you. Well, this is great because what you can do, say in the history classroom context, is, history, it just keeps going. It keeps adding up, right? And you don't always get to it. So you break off and you say, all right, group 1, you're taking, in this case, Battle of the Bulge. You're going to teach us on it. Well, you have them make this through Gamma. They review the content. They're fact-checking the content, making sure it looks good, adding maybe what's necessary into it. And then you pair it with a coaching platform. So PowerPoint just released this, or Microsoft released this in PowerPoint. It's called coaching. And what it does is it records your presentation, and then at the end of it, it's going to give you feedback. It's going to give you how many times you said, how fast you were. Did you really talk fast like a squirrel? Or were you too slow and you weren't keeping people's attention? It'll give you all that feedback, and then you can have students continually revise and understand what they're doing. It gives some great graph data on it too for it. This one, Scribe, you've probably seen this one all over. I've been using this for documentation of our new NLSA platform on how to use. Super easy, it's just an extension. Start it. Every time you click, it writes the narrative and takes a screenshot of the click and then builds it into a PDF for you. So maybe you have a new website that you want kids to use and you want to have some back-end work done. Well, this is recording you using it, writing out the description of what you've done, and then you can just feed that PDF to your class like that. So then you always have that documentation for them. And it's useful for you. If maybe there's a program you use once, twice a year, or for NLSA's new sake, maybe once every 5 years, well, now we have documentation on it. Love Heart, this one's for the early childhood teachers. This one's pretty cool. So if you know an early childhood teacher, let them know about this one. What it does, if you're not familiar, in early childhood, a big thing is creating these like narrative entries for kids, and parents love seeing them. Well, the teacher still collects all the documentation, and then they still provide a brief description of what they want for that day. And then the AI helps write the narrative entry that's given. They still review it, make sure it's correct, but it saves a lot of time. Our early childhood teachers are working anywhere from like 5:30 a.m. all the way to 8 p.m. at night. And then they have to go home and enter in all this data, or they're hoping nap time, all the kids are asleep, and they're going to try and get stuff done. Any way we can help kind of lower that time frame of work spent so they're spending more time with the kids is always a benefit. So that's what I have. Reactions, comments, questions? No. I covered it all? Yes, I did it.
Question.
Yep.
What's your feeling about BRIS?
What is it?
BRIS? Have you heard of it?
I have not.
Oh, okay. So it's like Magic School.
Okay.
That's a Chrome extension.
Okay. So I think I've seen one of the ads for that. I haven't played with it,
Okay.
but I want to.
We have it as a school.
Does it work well?
I like it. It's very much similar to
Mm-hmm.
the Magic School site.
Oh, very cool. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll replace Magic School with that.
I don't know. Well,
Maybe I'll add it.
I don't know.
I'm going to hold you to it.
Because it connects with the Chrome extension.
That's really easy
Yeah,
too.
Chromebook.
So from the technical standpoint on that, if you're using a Chromebook and you can just push it out from one computer to everybody's device, is a lot easier. Any way that we can help save time for your IT people as well.
Yeah.
A lot of times we have teachers who act as IT people, and yeah, that's good. I'm going to have to check that out more. I definitely want to. Anything that's educational content for AI, it's this like emerging field that's going to be really cool to see how it can be used. But I'm also worried that it might be used really poorly at some point too. So that's why I always try and preface things with, be careful, review it first. But I'm going to check it out. Yeah.
Where do we go? Or you're going to provide your recorded
Oh, yeah.
video and you. Like, how do we get that?
I'll put that in the Google Drive folder as well.
And where's that?
I know there's a Google Drive folder for this conference.
Going out on the website, they'll be posted with it should be underneath the breakout session presenters. Like when you go
Cool.
in, you have to like actually like scan, go into the website, and then connect it to the presenters.
I will drop this.
It should pull up in there. It might not be there quite yet. Yeah.
No worries. Here's the link, though. I'll put this link back up here if you want to grab that as well. This is always the live link, so you'll always get the latest up-to-date content on it. And then again, if you're not following school ministry, TikTok, X, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, definitely follow those. We do a lot of giveaways too. So it's just, what are you thankful for being a Lutheran teacher, or about being a Lutheran teacher? Drop a comment, and then you get entered into possibly win one of our swag bags. So I have, there is swag up here too. Feel free to grab that. As I was talking earlier, we have a lot of golf tees. So if you have any golf outings coming up, let me know. I'll send you a bunch.
You know when you were saying that your wife was taking some of her writings and dumping it in and check, and it was coming back